Hi, everyone. It's me, Virginia. Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Living on the Verge podcast. I'm going to jump right on in this week because we have a lot to cover. So let's start off with some Bravo news. First bit of news is that the new Vanderpump Rules is filming. My friends over at the Vanderpump Rules Party podcast posted on their Instagram video of Lisa Vanderpump being filmed by a crew that as she's walking into Sir, the restaurant. And so we can expect to hear more information and news on this. And I have not yet listened to the latest episode of my friend's podcast, but I'm guessing that they are covering a little bit more detail on there. So go ahead and take a listen to theirs after you've listened to mine, and maybe there'll be some more tea for us. I'll bring any tea I may have regarding the new cast to you as I get it. Other Vanderpump related news: Tom and Victoria were on Nick Viall's podcast. Did anybody listen? So I have a couple of takeaways. The first one is that I really liked Victoria. She came across as a strong, intelligent woman, not at all the narrative that we've been getting on social media. And my other hot take may not be a very popular one, but I have forgiven Tom Sandoval. To be honest, it's been quite some time since I had forgiven him, but for sure he redeemed himself post Traders. His behavior as well as his interviews that I've heard have been very much indicative of a new Tom Sandoval, and Victoria professes to be very good for him. I would totally agree with that sentiment, and I will admit that for a moment there, I was concerned. If you listen to a previous episode of the podcast, I talk about hearing the Instagram live that Sandoval came out with one morning at 4:00 in the morning. I was highly concerned. And I was also very concerned by the alleged sweaty armpits. Okay, they're not alleged. He's talked about them himself. I was concerned about the excessive sweating on the first few episodes of The Traders. Both he and Dylan Efron have explained it away as the castle was really, really hot. So I'm going to go ahead and give it to them on that one. But I like Tom Sandoval again, you guys. Sue me. Sorry. I'm not really sorry. I think he has served enough penance for God and everyone, and that he deserves a second chance like everybody else. So speaking of second chances, should Allie Luber give James Kennedy a second chance? Well, that question didn't come up on the podcast, the Viall Files podcast that Allie was recently on, but many other things came up, including the question that Nick asked her, which was, do you now believe Kristen and Raquel when they talk about the allegations against James Kennedy? And she didn't directly say that she did, but she did not discount them at all. And at the end of the day, she, I guess, essentially said that she believed them because she stands behind women and she was not for one moment going to accuse them of lying. So take that any way you want it. When asked about Lisa Vanderpump, this was the part I thought was most juicy. Apparently she got some real misogynistic answers. She was told things like, don't forget you were drinking on that night too. And, he really needs you. You're good for him. And maybe you should go with him to some of his shows. Allie thought a lot of it was a lot and did not hesitate in saying so. So if you want to hear the whole interview, it's actually pretty good. And listen to Nick. There you have it. And let's see, what else? Okay, well, Raquel, we just mentioned Raquel. Raquel has moved completely away from the reality TV scene. She is happily healing people with her sound baths in Arizona. And there is nothing wrong with that. I am happy that she has bounced back from her Instagram postings. She looks really happy and she looks like a whole new woman. I am so glad that she ditched the podcast and decided to find another path, and I wish her all the success. You guys, Nick Viall has been killing it lately. He also had Katie on the podcast. I haven't listened, mainly because I really used to love Katie, but as of late, I just hadn't found her as interesting. And to be honest, I will listen eventually because I do love and listen to all things Vanderpump Rules, but I have had a lot on my plate, so I haven't quite gotten around to it. Let me know if you listen and what your thoughts might be. I'd love to hear your feedback. And moving on to the Valley. The Valley content, you guys, is starting to show itself all over the internet. I believe Bravo released a sneak peek, which is the first 7 minutes of episode 1, if I am correct about that. And, I can't help but wonder how hard this is going to be for Britt and Jax living it all over again. That must be really rough. I know I've talked about that before, but especially in this case, given that they are in the throes of a divorce, it's going to be rough. I wish I would have asked Zach when I met him what we were going to see about him, what his storyline was going to be, because he did indicate that he is a full-blown, full cast member this season. So that would have been the natural next question. Well, TBD. It'll give me an opportunity, or another excuse, I should say, to go back to West Hollywood and run into them once more before I think that this second season is really going to have them blowing up off the charts. So, Brittany and Jax, we talked a little bit about how hard it might be for them, but you guys, Brittany is really talking. I mean, geez, I saw a little snippet on Instagram of an interview, and I don't even know what it was for, so forgive me if I'm not giving proper credit, but it was her talking about why she ultimately had to move out with Cruz, and it was her talking about his come downs from his cocaine habits and the long nights, and I guess things had really blown up the night before she finally got up the next morning and packed her stuff up because, to paraphrase her, she said that she just did not feel safe having Cruz in the house with Jax anymore. She also goes on to say that it was the first time she was publicly speaking about her son Cruz's autism. He was diagnosed with nonverbal autism, which means that he doesn't speak. And she said that originally he was speaking, and as he got closer to 2 years old, he became less and less verbal, and now he only says mom. So she's talking about her journey and how she, as a mom and as a woman, is getting used to living with a son that has special needs and learning about his particular needs and his particular diagnosis. And that's got to be a lot to handle, along with, divorce that is super public and that has admitted substance abuse issues at the center of it, along with, you just so happen to be filming a reality TV show. I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be there to watch it all, and I will be there to bring it all to you, and I will have any tea that unravels as the season does. So you'll just have to keep on listening. Does anybody watch Summer House? So I started watching it, and then I haven't had time to keep watching it. But for the most part, I was only watching it because the Carl and Lindsay story kind of piqued my interest. And I've just had too much content to watch. I'm sure that when things slow down, I will go back and get caught up. But the Bravo news is that Carl Radke has a new girlfriend. And said girlfriend allegedly dated none other than Dallas Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott. So there you go. That's another tidbit for you. And speaking of Carl and Lindsay, there is word traveling around, And Andy admitted on Radio Andy the other day that he did refer her name for the new Real Housewives of New York. I call it the new one because it's so different than the one that I know and love, which is the original Roni. Anyway, he says that he thinks she'd be great on the show. So are we getting Easter eggs on Radio Andy? And is Lindsay somebody we want to see on Real Housewives of New York? Don't ask me for my opinion because I don't even want to watch the next season unless something significantly changes that, piques my interest. There are plenty other things to watch. And I'm sorry, Bravo, but if you guys don't start bringing it to the table, I may have to start talking about some of the TLC shows that are taking my attention at the moment, as well as Netflix. Netflix has been pulling some pretty cool things out of the bag lately, and I may have to switch gears on you guys if you can't bring it together when it comes to these Housewives franchise. Former housewife of Beverly Hills, Teddi Mellencamp, updated us on her health crisis and did in fact tell us that she has stage 4 cancer, that she, as recently as a few days ago, not even a couple of weeks, was found to have more tumors in her brain, and that she did in fact complete her radiation but is undergoing immunotherapy. Listen, you guys, in all seriousness, Teddi Mellencamp has always been one of my favorites. I know that wasn't a popular opinion to have because she was very opinionated and for whatever reason got a lot of hate on social media, but I have always loved her and I've listened to her 2 T's in a podcast for a long, long time. Teddi, my heart goes out to you and yours. I continue to keep you in my prayers and will continue to give updates as you fight and win this battle. Does anybody miss Kandi Burruss? Well, she doesn't miss us. She just set a record for Othello on Broadway, $2.8 million in 1 week. So she is part of the production team that is producing the Othello play on Broadway starring Denzel Washington and Jake Gyllenhaal. And she set an all-time Broadway record. I told you guys Kandi had bigger fish to fry, and as much as we might miss her, I don't think she's missing us, especially given all of the drama that's going on this season. So let's move on, speaking of drama this season, to Kenya Moore. I will have more on the Real Housewives of Atlanta on another podcast, but I just wanted to let you guys know that Kenya is going to have Kenya's Confessionals. It starts next Monday, April 15th on YouTube, and it is her firsthand account of anything that she wants to say with regards to what happened this season on Atlanta, as well as I'm sure a lot of other things, without having to have the Bravo filter, if you will. So I don't know if you'll be listening, but I will be. And Miami, Real Housewives of Miami, you guys, it's starting to show up on our radar, both on Instagram and in Bravo News. We're starting to hear more about it. No official date yet, but we know that they were filming. So I'm sure as the other franchises start to wind down, we will start to hear more about Miami. And I can't help but think that this is by design by Bravo to kind of slow the Housewife franchise down a little bit. And I'm not sure that I don't love the idea. So let's see what happens with that. And if you watch The Masked Singer, then you know that we unmasked yet another housewife. Erica Jane of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills was the Yorkshire Terrier that recently got eliminated from this season of The Masked Singer. So it doesn't surprise me. We had Sheena Shea and now we have Erica Jane, and it looks like they are really dipping into the Bravoverse for their casting on that show. So I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see more before the end of the season. And staying with the Beverly Hills Housewives, Kyle Richards recently showed up on an episode of the CW show Wild Cards. Let me know if you've seen it. I haven't had a chance to watch it. I don't know if it's just a guest spot or if she's going to be a series regular, but I'm happy she's staying booked and busy. Good for you, Kyle. So Which housewife would you like to see back? I am specifically referring to Beverly Hills, but from time to time I'll do this for other franchises. Which housewife would you like to see back on Beverly Hills? I'm going to give you my two. The first one is Crystal Minkoff. I don't think she was given enough of an opportunity. And if you listen to her podcast with Cynthia Bailey, Humble Brag, you are going to hear a whole different side of her. As an aside, she is a well-traveled woman. And what I love about her is that even though she has a lot of money and she is a successful, well-rounded woman, she is not frivolous. She travels coach. She gives you amazing travel tips. So Crystal, I'm sure that you've cleared your schedule to listen to my podcast. And since you are listening, I'd love to invite you on to discuss travel. Please bring Cynthia. It would just be such a lovely afternoon for me. I would have a great time because it's all the things that I love: housewives, travel, and I just think that she deserves another opportunity to show what she's all about. I feel like she was somewhat stifled. My next choice would be Lisa Rinna. I know it's not a popular opinion, but I love Lisa Rinna. And even though she says that she would not return, she did recently say to Harry on their podcast that money talks and everybody has their price, and that she might be convinced for the right amount of money. And as another little, Easter egg tidbit, Lisa Rinna was on Radio Andy. And the whole reason that everybody is saying that she would never go back is because she was on the outs with Andy. I haven't had a chance to listen to that episode either, but if you have, can you tell me if she said that she might be going back to the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills? That's all I really need to know. That would be enough to get me to be excited about coming back next season. So Garcelle already left. If you just got rid of Sutton and brought back Crystal and Lisa Rinna, then that might be a combination that might work. Well, that does it for the Bravo news. In other pop culture news, Val Kilmer died at age 65 of pneumonia on April 1st, you guys. I was so sad. Val Kilmer has always been one of my favorites. He was born in Los Angeles, California, and you'll remember him from playing Iceman in Top Gun, and then, of course, Doc Holliday in Tombstone. He was also in Heat, and who could forget Bruce Wayne in Batman Forever? And then his last role as the reprisal in Top Gun Maverick was in 2022. And then I also watched that documentary called Val. It was really good. If you can find it anywhere, I suggest you watch it. He talks about his journey through his throat cancer diagnosis. And there is a lot more to Val Kilmer than just the actor that we all knew and loved. So you're going to be sorely missed. Thank you for all of the beautiful gifts that you gave us. Rest in peace, Val Kilmer. And in music news, Miley Cyrus has a new single out. It's called End of the World, and it's from her upcoming new album to be released on May 30th called Something Beautiful. There is speculation that she will be touring possibly in 2025. I have not been able to find any details. If you have them, please DM them to me and send them my way, because I do intend to be at that concert. So that's my music news. Listen, I went to a birthday party last weekend, and when I walked in, I heard a bunch of noise, and I went to the back to see all of the kids gathered around a table, and they were playing Beyblades. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Does anybody remember Beyblades? Because the first thing I thought when I heard Beyblades was, these have been around before. And I am right. Beyblades were originally announced in July 1999. And the popularity was spurned by a new iteration that came out in 2023. They're calling it Beyblade X. And so what is Beyblade? Well, it is a like a competition game. It is, I guess you choose a Beyblade, and then you have a battle in a match. And I guess the first person to reach 3 points wins the match. Listen, all of this to say, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about when it comes to Beyblades, but my son Corey and Zeke are Beyblade bros, and recently even went to a Beyblade tournament, which I was really excited to hear all about, but I have not gotten a chance to yet. So maybe I'll invite them on the podcast and they can tell us firsthand what all the rage is about. And maybe, we will understand why this once popular craze is popular yet again. So that brings us to the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills Reunion Part 2. First, let's talk a little bit about the ratings. So 896,000 watched the finale, 971,000 watched the reunion part 1, but only 816,000 watched part 2. What does that mean? I don't know. But by contrast, to give you an understanding and kind of an idea, the White Lotus finale brought in 6.2 million viewers, which is a record, while the previous episode had 4.8 million and the episode before that had 4.2. So there is a lion's share to be gotten, but the Housewives is not getting it when it comes to the ratings these days. Let's move on to the actual episode. So Jen Tilly and Kathy are both there getting glammed and getting ready for their segments. Lunch is almost over, and then we get back to the set. So Andy says, I understand that you want to say something to Kyle, to Garcelle. And Garcelle says, yes, I just wanted to mention that when you talked to me off set, off camera, you made me feel like you were trying to shut me up. And Kyle takes exception to that, and Andy says, is this pertaining to Morgan? And Garcelle nods. So, Andy surprisingly did not go easy on Kyle and kind of kept going in on her and asking her to explain. And Bose, on the other hand, thinks Kyle should just stand in her truth and just tell God and everybody who wants to listen that it's none of their business and that she doesn't want to talk about that part of her life. Either way, Kyle kind of feels like there's two sets of rules, and then Dorit says that she feels the same way. They start to get into why things went south. Dorit tells Kyle, you weren't being a girl's girl. And Kyle fires back, you weren't being a girl's girl when you read that text for the whole world to hear last season either. And Dorit, plain and simple, says, I didn't think we were friends anymore at that point, so I didn't care. Eventually, it comes out that Dorit was really hurt when Kyle made the comment that Dorit thought they were better friends than they were. She said it more than a few times last season when the fight was going back and forth between the two of them. I think that's what kind of made Dorit feel that it was over, that she had exaggerated the friendship. So then Kyle admits that she was upset about the comment that Dorit made on Watch What Happens Live. Back in 2023, you guys, at least these people don't hold any grudges. If I'm correct, the reunion was filmed earlier this year. So we're still a year and a half out from the comment that Dorit made, which was, the closer she gets to Morgan, the further she got from me. In my opinion, not that big of a deal, but apparently it was to Kyle. I don't know what the heck. Anyway, Andy keeps grilling Kyle, and he says, but isn't Morgan a public figure, and doesn't that come with some expectation of, being talked about publicly? And what about all the publicity that she got from the show and the fact that she was in New York Magazine? And, he's listing, and Kyle's trying to get a word in edgewise, and he just doesn't let her. And there is a lot of talk going around on social media about the fact that Kyle and Morgan may have been gay baiting last season by putting out the whole video. Andy brings the video up and Kyle still wants to defend it. He says she had control over what to put in that video. And Kyle's response was, and so did I. Whatever. I don't think we're ever going to hear the truth from Kyle, but can we talk about the makeup for a minute? It's obvious I wasn't going to get much more out of Kyle, so I started zoning out and really looking at the girl's makeup. And the makeup is gorgeous. It is really striking on camera, and it got me wondering, when a makeup artist styles a look for a reality TV star, let's say it's the exact same look. Do you do the makeup differently if the person is going to be on TV versus maybe just going to a formal event? And if so, would that look on TV, if it was more, let's say, defined or striking, would it look crazy in person? I'd love to hear your feedback if you're a makeup artist, but I happen to know one in particular. Danielle, if you're listening, I know you've done reality TV makeup, so you'd be a perfect authority to answer on this. And also, now that I'm thinking about it, I'd love to have you on the podcast. Anyway, as per usual, I digress. I will get back on track and just wrap things up with Kyle, where Kyle is kind of wanting to make things better with Dorit, and she says that they have had enough of a relationship that she would want to work on it. And Dorit says that she thinks things went south when, with the whole PK message thing. And then during the montage that they show about the message, it kind of really shows two things. One, that the whole storyline got belabored beyond belief, but also it showed Kyle slowly unraveling before our eyes. And now we know that she actually did walk off of set and not film for a week, which was something she had not ever done in the 14 years that she had been on the show. But we also know that it couldn't have just been about the PK text message situation. I think there was a lot more going on there with Kyle, and that was just the straw that broke the camel's back. Then they go to unseen footage of Kyle telling Erica that PK told her a lot of things. And I think either Bravo was trying to be super shady and there's no there, or Bravo is giving us a little Easter egg about the fact that Kyle knows a lot more and her relationship with PK may be a little bit more than she ever let on. Why else would they show that? It's just very Bravo-esque to start shit, right? So anyway, nobody's siding with Kyle about the text. And then Erica steps in to say that she didn't think it was what everyone was thinking. And then the girls chime in here and there and say, yeah, they never thought it was nefarious. They just thought it was wrong. They didn't think she was being a girl's girl, yada, yada, yada. Kyle turns it around and then starts talking about the other text from last year's reunion yet again. I don't know what the deflection is all about, but damn, she's media trained as F. So Dorit says, you should have just said it. And Kyle agrees that she should have just said it. She should have just said, you know what? I do text him. I texted him first, and then you and I weren't speaking. But when I found out that nobody was really reaching out to you and, the separation had been announced, I reached out and I texted you as well. Well, that's not what happened. And so then as this conversation is going on, the crystal falls. The amethyst crystal that Kyle has been holding falls. So Dorit is mad at Kyle because she was telling her about them not speaking. And then Dorit and Kyle get into it over the fact that Kyle is not being a good friend. And then she brings up the fact, I don't think I knew this until this very moment, that Kyle went back to the room after the Oceanside fight during the season and called PK. She tried to soften the blow by saying, I think he was with Mo, but she fucking called PK, you guys. She didn't call Mo, she called PK. So they finally agree that they want to move forward, but Dorit says, I would like to get together without cameras, friends, everybody here, even Andy. And Kyle ends up apologizing and extending an invitation and kind of saying, I'm going to be the first one to, extend the olive branch and go on record as saying that I want to fix this. If it's genuine or not, I don't even know anymore. And I honestly don't even know if I care. So they come back from commercial and then Jennifer Tilly joins. Why do we always call her Jennifer Tilly? Like instead of just calling her Jennifer? I noticed that even here on the podcast, I either call her Jennifer Tilly or I call her Jen. So Jen joins and they come back. And guess what, you guys? The crystal falls again. The amethyst crystal that Kyle Richards is holding falls again. So amethyst, if I remember correctly, is supposed to induce relaxation and calm. And what is that telling you guys? I don't know. But Jennifer is talked to about, how fabulous she is, of course. But specifically, they hone in on the candy scene in St. Lucia, which she admits she knew nothing about. And that is why she referred to it as Santa Lucia. And it was a funny little shady moment where she says, and the locals kind of told me that that's what they refer to it as. And then Bo says, no, they don't. And kind of gives Andy the side eye. And it's a LOL on the down low kind of moment. Whatever. Jennifer's oblivious to it all. She goes on to talk about how she ate all of the candy, even the one that had fallen all over the place, by the time she left Santa Lucia, which she now knows to call St. Lucia. And they go on with Jen's fabulosity, all of her handbags, her riches, and the fact that she just got a fucking awesome attitude about life. She's like, look, I'm rich. I know I'm never going to spend all this money and life is short. She watched the man that, even though she wasn't married to him, she says she loved him and still loves him to this day. She watched him die and she understands that life is precious, so she just lives it to the fullest every day, and I think that is amazing. So, what do you think Dorit meant when she said to Jen, I hope you're not going anywhere? It seemed a little passive-aggressive. If you looked at Jen's face, it registered with her as well, not just with me. Anybody else? Anyway, I thought it was very intuitive and self-aware of her to admit that she comes off as a show-off and she didn't realize how much she bragged. That was a good look, because if she was oblivious to it, then that would kind of suck. But it even makes me love her more that she knows she comes across that way and that she's aware of it. And then we get Kathy. Kathy Hilton walks in. Listen, she looked beautiful. That white dress that she had was so becoming on her. And honestly, I thought it was her best look all season. She walks in and of course she has her handbag with her. It was a Louis Vuitton. It was the little small white handbag. And me being me, of course, I was going to look that up and see which one that was and how much that shit cost. So I believe it was the Capuchinas East West Mini, and it will run you $6,750. I kind of think she brings her handbag because it's her bag of tricks. Later on in her segment, she pulls out what is an eyelash brush and demonstrates how she uses it to clean her teeth by brushing her teeth with it, and also how she uses oil and sugar to clean her lips. I think it's just part of her shtick, if you will, and it's kind of what makes her amazing. Andy compliments Kathy and says she has a gift for getting everybody to open up, and Kathy asks for an example, and he says, well, for example, during the luncheon that you had, and she immediately deflects and says, well, Bose, you had some funny stuff to say, or something like that. And then Bose says, no, girl, you were the one who were talking about being Chinese and from 3000 BC. Well, Kyle wants to know if she's Chinese. So Andy starts to dig a little bit, and Kathy explains that she walked into a Max Mara fashion show in Italy and encountered this woman who she started talking to, who didn't know her from Adam, and asked her name, and then told her that she was Chinese. And when pressed a little bit further by Andy, and how did she find out? Kathy says she looked it up on her phone. So of course everybody starts laughing, and you're left to wonder, was Kathy serious? Does she believe it? Did she not? I think she's just bullshitting us. I think she's way smarter than, we all ever want to give her credit for. And she's perfectly happy with that narrative because she's having fun. They move on to Dorit and Sutton. And that moment when Sutton interrupted Dorit during the season to tell him that they had to leave to go to Garcelle's place, it was pretty controversial. If you didn't watch it, go back and watch it. Anyway, and Dorit is instantly activated. You could almost tell, or at least this is my opinion, it appeared that she was waiting for a reason to get activated and that the conversation about Jagger was really going to be it. So Dorit seems to be goading Sutton and so where's that Sutton, the one with the beady eyes and yada, 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 because she wants Sutton to be activated as well. So what a perfect time. But now to discuss the "my wallet is bigger than yours" comment. Well, Garcelle, Kyle, Dorit, Erica, and even Kathy says, you know what, Sutton, you were wrong. And then Dorit gets pissed off, already activated, and says, you don't exactly live like the Queen of Sheba. You live on a fucking main road. And again, listen to this on the Peacock channel if you can, because it hits a little different when these bougie bitches are throwing out F-bombs left and right and there's no beep. So Sutton tells Dorit she doesn't need her to tell her that there are more important things in life than money. And then Dorit sets her off, and we end with Dorit making the comment, oh, here she comes. And then she says something about how Sutton buys people. Listen, that is enough for Sutton to get the beady look in her eyes, and that's where we end episode 2. It was good, not as good as the first one. Hopefully 3 will be better. Otherwise, I'm going to be asking why we're doing 3-part reunions and why I can't just pivot and focus on Atlanta, which I will be bringing you in the next episode. So bear with me. And we'll also be talking about White Lotus. Thanks for spending this time with me yet again. I appreciate you as always. Have a good one.